that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week, number 359. What do you think of that?
Here's Time's Tom flying when you're having fun.
Yeah, right. Here's Tom looking like a deer in the headlights. Tom maintains the stuff, the engineering on the show, and he has
like I'm doing right now.
He has to keep up to date on what's there, and that means studying the monitors. So he always looks like he's staring at something. Well, he is staring at something. Every day I get up and go to the internet and find all the news that I can about climate change and energy, and I put items together, each item in a 50 or 55 word synopsis with a link to the original, and I put 10 to 15 of these up together at my blog, geoharvey.com. And the show that we do every week is based on the material that goes onto that blog. We have some exciting stuff this week.
Yeah, it's a good week.
We do. This week, today is February 20th. We're recording the show on Thursday morning at BCTV in Brattleboro. And so we start a week ago, Thursday, February 13th. And if you want to read the articles that we're talking about, you can go to geoharvey.com and click on the date on the calendar, or you can go to the link that I have, which goes to a thing called energyweeknews.wordpress.com.
Right.
And I have put that link on the show links. So if you're watching this through a system that retains those links, you can actually click on the script that we use for the show, which is a little easier to get items on. And we are probably going to start doing podcasts.
That'd be nice.
So,
yeah. Well, I do know that from having read these things, that some of these things are worth following up on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll try and alert you to some of them, because some of them are in the category of can't miss.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of those this week. So should we just start?
Might as well, can't dance.
Okay, starting Thursday, February 13th, with an item from Clean Technica.
And we're starting off with a picture here.
Of that is said to be a fire, and people heard an explosion, and the people who said it was a fire said, no, that's a fire.
Oh, there wasn't any explosion.
There was no explosion there.
Well, that is an Exxon plant.
Yes.
As it says there. And it says it's burning, and that's a good observation.
I think it's at least burning.
So the caption here is, Exxon plant catches fire. Now you got the word. You got the floor.
The Exxon. This is the person who wrote this is a regular writer for Clean Technica, and she lives in Louisiana. The Exxon plant here in Baton Rouge has caught fire, even though officials say there wasn't an explosion. Several witnesses reported hearing one.
Well, you know how those witnesses lie.
Yeah, well, they're all paid to lie by leftists. I also heard what seemed like an explosion. I live 5 miles away. They also say the fire is out and no one was hurt. Well, okay, it was a minor fire that just lit up the sky.
This one's worth looking up. There's a fire video, which is kind of boring. It's just a fire, but it's a short one. And there's a lot of pictures in this one. This is pretty good. And I'll read a quick rundown on it. The plant is an oil refinery and a chemical plant that works with plastics. So it hires about 7,000 people. So this is a big plant.
Yeah.
There have been multiple reports on both Twitter and Facebook by people who heard a loud explosion. But you know how they lie. The problem is the denial by our leaders instead of trying to create viable solutions. They wouldn't do that.
Well, I think you should remember, I think almost everybody has had the experience of having a rubber balloon explode.
Yeah.
And the fact that something explodes doesn't mean that it's, and if you take an egg and you put it in a microwave, in the shell,
it will explode.
It'll explode, and it'll make quite a mess. So the fact that there's an explosion does not of itself.
Well, there's a difference between an egg exploding in a microwave and a chemical plant exploding.
Yeah, and
if you live 5 miles away, I would be concerned too.
Yeah, I have actually been at chemical plants where there were explosions.
While you were there?
While I was there, yeah.
Oh, nice.
And I had to clean up. I had to clean up after a couple of them. One of them, it was just so amazing. A guy, you know, when you're making chemicals, sometimes you substitute one thing for another. So you
don't tell anybody.
No, you can. This is allowed, you know. And this guy was making something like a pound of silver suboxide, and it was called for, I don't know, it was
3 grapes,
potassium,
2 bananas,
potassium,
something or other,
potassium chloride, potassium chlorate. And he didn't have it, and he didn't have the sodium chlorate because you can figure out how to change the. So he used ammonium chlorate, whatever it was an ammonium compound, and ammonium compounds with silver is a no-no. You do not mix the two. And so he washed it out, you know, everything was fine, but what he didn't realize was there was enough of this stuff left.
Yeah.
And of course, what was the last thing he did with it in the day? He put it on a tray to dry and put it in the oven and walked out and drove home. And when we came in the morning, the oven was lying on its side, the door was blown off, and there was silver suboxide all over the floor. and I was the one who had to sweep it up, and sweeping it up meant dragging a broom across the floor, and it would go pop, 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 pop,
oh, no
pop,
kidding.
pop, pop.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Now let's move along here. We got one coming up
from
here
Renew Economy.
Renew, yep. New billion-dollar mine looks to solar, wind, and batteries for 80% of power needs. And that's interesting.
I really, you know, this kind of story comes up over and over and over again. Australian mining company Minerals. Australians love to refer to their country as Oz.
Yeah.
To power its proposed $1 billion, that's Australian dollars, so it's about 750 million American dollars, West Musgrave copper nickel mine with up to 80% renewables. A study shows the deposit has potential to produce 28,000 tons, T-O-N-N-E-S, which is metric tons.
It's only a little bit more than a ton.
Yeah. This would be 31,000 tons maybe, short tons.
I don't think it's that much. Well, 28, 30, 31.
Yeah, something like that. And 22,000 tons of nickel a year for 26 years. That's a lot.
That's a good amount.
But, you know,
it's going to be a big mine.
You need the electricity. You can't afford to put in transmission lines. You don't want to drive diesel fuel there constantly. So what do? Use renewable
Well, it makes
power.
sense. I mean, Australia is a big place.
It sure is.
And this is in the lower southeast, I guess, of Australia.
I don't remember. I don't remember where the most.
Yeah, it's in the south. Well, whatever it is, it's not near power.
Yeah, well,
and they're generating the power themselves.
Yeah,
which makes a lot
most of Australia is not near power.
Well, a quick takeaway here. West Musgrave would become one of the largest fully off-grid renewable powered mines in the world. This is called West Musgrave.
Yeah.
The company proposes a 50 megawatt base power supply using hybrid solar, wind, battery, and diesel.
Okay.
So they're running everything they can when they need it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Consistent solar and wind resources are available.
Yes.
Okay, which is common in Australia. Really.
Yes, it is, absolutely.
Higher wind velocities at night offsetting the lack of solar.
Yes.
So it balances itself pretty well.
Yes, and you throw in batteries onto that, and you've got a way to keep going.
And we got another picture coming up.
We have an item here from CNN.
This is New York City, the Battery.
That's the
Battery.
Battery.
The very bottom of Manhattan.
Is that related to a lithium
Revolutionary times they had guns there.
Battery?
Huh?
Lithium-ion battery?
No, in revolutionary times they had a battery of guns there.
Yeah, which, by the way, is where the term battery comes from for electrical batteries.
It does, yeah, absolutely.
It used to be a whole bunch of jars.
A collection of guns was a battery.
That was a battery, but the first electrical batteries were collections of jars. and they reminded people of that time with batteries.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Well, the article says, and that's a picture of smog in case you hadn't guessed it.
Well, the caption says so.
And it's smoggy down there a lot.
Yeah.
A study, air pollution can cross state lines and with deadly consequences.
You know, I put this in here.
Well, it's true.
It's true. And it's something that we've known all along and we've been talking about for a long time. And
But you don't think about it.
The study was published in Nature. Okay, so it shows something new. A study shows that air pollution can contribute serious health issues hundreds of miles away.
Well, that's something you got to think about.
Yes. The
And
study,
we're right here getting that.
Absolutely.
We get the effluent from Ohio.
From Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. You know, when I was a kid, we used to drive through Indiana. I remember one of those factories had 14 smokestacks. And I could smell Gary, Indiana from upwind, like 10 miles away.
Wow.
And it would give me a headache. By the time I was in Gary, I had a serious headache, and it would take me an hour or two to get over it.
Wow.
When we drove past. A study shows that air pollution can contribute to serious health issues hundreds of miles away. The study published in the journal Nature found that around half, and this is the important thing, this is the reason why it went into the blog, around half of pollution-related deaths in the United States occur outside the borders of the state where the toxic air originated.
Well, as I already mentioned, we're the recipients here. And I'll read what it says. A group of states in the Northeast are significant importers of air pollution. And they showed a map. It's from New York and all the rest of New England.
Yeah, and what does this tell you? It tells you that in order to deal with the problem, you have to engage the federal government. Because
well, you can't tell Ohio what to do.
You can't tell Ohio what to do.
Well, since 2018, emissions from commercial and residential activity, which is home heat and cars, have been the largest source of air pollution from human activity tied to early deaths.
Yeah.
Significant interventions to reduce these emissions will be needed. Duh.
Yeah, duh.
Okay. EPA regulations have been very successful in improving air quality. It's important that these are not rolled back.
Well, they've already been rolled back, and they're
well,
being
they want to
rolled
eliminate
back,
them.
and, yeah, they
anything Obama did is verboten.
I got news for you. They're rolling back regulations that were put in by Richard Nixon.
By Nixon, I would have said Bush.
Well, certainly by Bush. There was a thing that came up later in this. I don't know if it made it into the show, but there was one that was very important. It was done by George Bush Sr. Okay, we're up to Friday, February 14th.
We got an interesting picture coming up here.
Not quite. We have the groundwater depletion.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Eureka alert.
As groundwater depletes, arid American West is moving east.
Not good news.
And temperatures moving north.
Yeah.
This doesn't say that, but it's a fact.
It's true. Even under the modest climate warming scenarios, the continental United States faces significant loss of groundwater, about 129 million cubic meters, enough to fill Lake Powell 4 times or 1/4 of Lake Erie. A first of its kind study has shown.
That's a significant amount of
it's
water.
It's a fair amount of water, yeah.
Well, what it says here is depletion of groundwater will be more disruptive to vegetation, streams, and rivers in the eastern U.S. than in the arid Southwest, where deep groundwater already is largely disconnected from surface waters.
Yes.
Okay, so what they're saying is we're taking the groundwater, we're drinking it, taking it out of the ground, and it's not refilling.
Well, it's being refilled with fracking waste.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
It's salty water.
Yeah. Okay, now we have that
Then we got a nice picture. This is the Living Memorial Park.
In Brattleboro.
Oh,
except that it's backwards. It's left to right switch. Tom
yeah,
said
they held the camera backwards here.
That's right. They have a backwards camera.
It looks very much like Living Memorial Park.
That is not Living Memorial Park. That is in Ruhpolding, Germany, which is almost on the Austrian border. It is in the Alps at a major ski resort.
That part of it's amazing.
Well, this is a beginner slope, as you can tell by the fact that almost
it's all
everybody,
little kids in there.
Yeah, either that or it's a bunch of adults, and some of them are twice as tall as the rest.
Well, there's a 3-minute video to look at that's kind of cute.
Yeah.
And I'll mention this. Living Memorial Park is probably the best bargain in skiing anywhere in the world.
You said
You can
that.
ski all day for $5.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Love skiing? Enjoy it while it lasts.
This is from CNN. This is not some kind of a joke. This is love
No,
skiing
this
and
is
enjoy
real.
it while it lasts. A report from the International Olympic Committee, again, this is obviously a group of people who are put together under the influence of socialists in China, examines the impact of climate change on future Winter Games. It forecasts that an increase of 1 degree Celsius, which is 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, would push the snow line up by 150 meters. The ski season may start a month earlier and finish up to 3 months, a month later, and finish up to 3 months earlier, the committee said.
Well, locally, it's already affecting Stratton Mountain and Mount Snow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They're quite concerned.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The ski industry in New England is all kind of concerned, and maybe in northern Vermont it's not as bad as it is in southern Vermont. But
Well, there's a big difference. I mean, northern Vermont is still pretty chilly.
I think it was Friday, Tom. We had, I think, the coldest night of the winter.
We could very well have.
Here
It's
in
been this
Brattleboro.
week, yeah.
Yeah, and
Last night was up there too. Down there.
The NOAA said that it was, I think it said it was 7 below. And
That's pretty cold.
7 below would put us into agricultural hardiness zone 6, where we were, when I was a kid, in hardiness zone 4B or 5A. And
You have to explain what that means.
Okay, what that means is things will survive now that would not have survived then.
Okay.
And the things that survive, we've got peach trees that are growing as just growing.
And that's natural, right? I mean,
Bam, out of the ground.
Yeah.
Then the seed was probably planted by a squirrel. And we've got, I know that there are pawpaw trees growing as volunteers.
I don't even know what they are.
Pawpaw is an interesting fruit that tastes like a banana and looks like a green potato. And it's full of seeds, The seeds, by the way, are poisonous, but you're not going to worry about that because they're about twice as big as a lima bean. And
Are they?
they're about
You're
as
not gonna miss
big
the
as a
seeds.
large lima bean. They're thick and they're hard, but the material that's in there is very, very, very sweet. And I've read, only a boy can eat 2 pawpaws. But anyway, these things are just coming up. And they weren't there when I was a kid. Well, other things are coming up too, like woolly adelgids and deer ticks with Lyme disease and all that kind of stuff. So
The climate is definitely
the
changing.
climate is changing, and anybody who thinks that it isn't just is out of touch. Okay,
Well, let's move on here.
move on. Okay.
From Clean Technica, the true cost of a society based on automobiles.
This was one that I thought was just,
Interesting article.
yeah, this is important.
This one is close to a must-see, I think.
Yeah, researchers at Harvard Kennedy School set out to find out just how much money the state of Massachusetts and its citizens spend each year to maintain a transportation system based on private car ownership. The answer, they said, is a staggering $64.1 billion. And
It's staggering. How many people live in Massachusetts?
I don't remember, but this was I think it was $5,000 some odd dollars per person.
Well, here it says $14,000 for every household.
$14,000 per household.
Per household.
And that was that the total, or was that just the tax share, or was that the?
I'll read that.
Okay.
We don't pay to use the roads. Okay.
Yeah.
These are public costs. Indirect externalities that come from public funds. So they're lumping all of these indirect. You don't pay it, but you do pay it.
Yeah.
Okay. It comes out to around $14,000 for every household in Massachusetts.
That is in addition to what you spend on your car.
Well, that's the next sentence. Households with private vehicles pay another $12,000 in direct costs.
Okay, so an ordinary household is going to be spending $26,000 because we've got cars.
Bingo. Costs also include less obvious intangibles, such as the effects of pollution,
Yeah, okay.
the value of land set aside for parking lots,
Ugh.
lost productivity from sitting in traffic, and various costs associated with injuries and deaths. And it finally ends up by saying that cost is much larger than we have realized.
Yes.
And they
now,
use the word staggering.
I want to point out that what they're not saying is how much it would cost to run the society without the car. So it's not like you would all of a sudden have $26,000 if we didn't
Well, it
have
costs you
cars.
something to maintain a horse.
Or, public transportation is probably
That would be
the-
nice.
Well, just think of Brattleboro, for crying out loud. If we had a trolley system that was just running every 5 minutes,
We
you
used
had
to have one.
constant trolleys.
Right in this building, you can see
absolutely.
pictures of it.
Absolutely. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, that trolley system consisted of had tracks that ran in a grassy street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would that be nice?
Bucolic is the word.
Yeah. Well, you'd still have to allow trucks and things like
Yeah.
that to get in there, because you've got to allow people to move in and out of their houses. But, these things can be dealt with, and I think we could have a much different society that would. I don't drive, and the amount of money that I save by not driving is really big. It's important.
I'm sure it is. I mean, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. If I did drive, I'd have to give up my apartment.
Would you really?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I've got a choice of having a place to live or living in a car. Okay, we're up
There's
to
some people doing that.
There are. We're up to Saturday, February
Yeah, we got a
15th.
picture
We have
coming
a
up
picture
here.
of
Let's start off
firemen in
with the
New
picture.
South Wales. There they are.
They are celebrating rain.
That's right. We have an item from the BBC.
And it says, how much rain did it take to put out the New South Wales fires? And that's something, if you don't know what they are, you haven't been watching this show.
No, I mean, some of these fires they were so big. There were fires there that were like 95 miles long.
Well, as we talked, there was some fires there that were about half the size of Windham County.
Yeah. I think there were fires that were bigger than
Bigger
that.
even.
Since July, there have been fires, sometimes hundreds at a time, burning in New South Wales. There have been fires in every state in Australia.
Yeah, this just happens to be about New South Wales,
About New South
which got
Wales.
hit pretty hard.
And the storms that came also hit Queensland and Victoria. And
they also hit pretty hard.
yeah. Things finally changed when the rain arrived in New South Wales last weekend. It was a massive dump of water, more than 400 millimeters, which is 15.7 inches in some places. And
Well, Irene was bad in Brattleboro, and we got about 6 inches.
yeah,
So
but
this was 16 inches.
yeah, the flooding that we had in Brattleboro mostly came from up in the mountains, and it
Well, it cost me a car.
the flooding in Brattleboro.
Yeah, my car got flooded.
Flooded.
I brought it to the mechanic, and his exact words I remember today. That's toast.
Yes. Well, I came across other pictures, and one of the pictures was just a sign that was kind of scrawled on a piece of board in front of a fire department, rural fire department, and it said, "Gone jumping in puddles."
Well, since July, there
Yeah.
have been fires, sometimes hundreds at once, burning across New South Wales, which we've talked about
Yeah.
on this show.
Yeah.
And it also says here about last Thursday, authorities announced that every single fire in the state had been contained.
Every single one.
That doesn't
And now
mean
they're
they
all-
put them out.
Well, yeah,
What it
but
means
now
is
they're out. They're
they're
all
out, yeah.
out. And by the way, if anybody wants to have some fun,
Yeah.
go to YouTube or a place like that and do a search there on the word koala and the terms belly rub or tummy rub. Because what's happened is, these koalas got hurt. A lot of them, you
Yeah, we
see
showed a
pictures
picture last week
of them looking like they're wearing socks and mittens. They're in bandage.
bandages.
And the koalas apparently just love tummy rubs. And people are giving them, they have koala hospitals for these little animals. And they'll lie there and just, they're in heaven with these tummy rubs. And the people who are giving them the tummy rubs look like they're having a wonderful time too. Okay,
Well, if it doesn't rain, it pours because the rains caused intense flooding.
yes, they did.
But
Okay.
they filled up reservoirs and dams that desperately needed it.
Yes, that's true.
So, it's not all bad.
No, it's not all bad. Our next item is from oilprice.com. We're still on Saturday, September
This one's
15th.
interesting. A third of fossil fuel assets may soon be stranded.
I don't buy this. Well, let me read this. Fossil fuel companies hold vast oil, gas, and coal riches that they frequently tout to the investing universe to help elevate their market values. Few, if any, have ever told investors that large chunks of these assets could be doomed to being forever buried in the ground. Well, I got news for you. It's already come to pass with oil companies, where oil companies that have been going bankrupt have sold their assets, and people would not buy. They wouldn't even bid on coal mines. This has been happening.
This is actually happening.
And to say a third of the fossil fuel assets may be
So
stranded.
you're saying it's going to
I
be
think
virtually
it's going to
all
be
of it.
well.
Eventually.
Yeah.
And eventually it's not going to be very long.
No, I don't think so. And so there it is.
Well, renewables are getting so cheap, you can't afford to use fossil fuels.
Yeah, absolutely,
It's economics.
absolutely.
Well, nearly $900 billion worth of reserves, or about 1/3 of the value of big oil and gas companies, is at risk of one day becoming worthless. If governments aggressively attempt to restrict the rise in temperatures to 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, that's what's the opposite? That's pessimistic.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be economics that's going to determine it. It's not going to be government restrictions.
The Dow Jones coal index hit, I think it was 12 point something this week.
They're going to stop doing that.
I think I've been surprised that they're still doing
Yeah.
it, because the companies just keep going broke one after another, and that.
What about, we talked about Murray. Was it Charles Murray, one of the biggest owners of coal mines?
Robert Murray? I
Robert
think.
Murray, yeah.
Yeah, and that he went broke.
He's going broke.
Yeah, they've all
One of the
been
richest
going
men
broke.
in the world.
And the oil and gas index is down. And I came across an article saying that ExxonMobil had lost 41% of its market value. And I looked at the oil and gas index and found that it was off by 47%. ExxonMobil was actually doing a little better than the
So
rest.
it's still, no matter what, it's economics.
Absolutely,
It's money.
yeah. Okay,
Well, we got an interesting picture here coming up.
we have an interesting picture. There's the interesting picture.
Oh, that
Oh,
is
yeah.
interesting.
This is from National Geographic, and this particular article is one that I found really, really
If
interesting.
you haven't figured it out, that's a locust swarm.
Yeah.
Okay, and boy,
And
they're swarming.
And in that part of Africa, in a lot of places, people go out and they put up nets to capture the locusts, not because it's going to make any dent in that mess of insects, but because they want to eat them for dinner.
Well, the article says it's about East Africa, but when you look at the article, it's more about Saudi Arabia, I think. At least the maps.
Yeah, the maps center on Saudi Arabia, and I'll go into
But
that.
these are all around Saudi Arabia
Yeah,
anyhow.
yeah.
Ethiopia, Somalia,
Yes.
what's the other one over there? Well, Kenya. Okay, all of Northeast Africa, and it's just the other side of the Red Sea.
And
from
also
Saudi
into
Arabia.
Iran.
Huh?
Also into Iran. And
That's the other. That's all the way across
Yeah.
all the way across Saudi Arabia.
What do you got for a title?
A plague of locusts has descended on East Africa. Climate change may be to blame.
Well, I would say climate change almost certainly is to blame. A plague of locusts is descending on East Africa, and by the way, it's also moved into Iraq and Iran, threatening the food supply of tens of millions of people. Desert locusts thrive following periods of heavy rainfall that trigger blooms of vegetation, such as a series of cyclones that happened in the last 2 years. Okay, what has happened here is we have an ocean event that's kind of like La Nina and El Nino, and it's
Yeah.
been exacerbated by climate change. And
It's in the Indian Ocean,
it's
isn't
in the
it?
Indian Ocean, and what has happened is where it's usually kind of cool south of Arabia in the ocean and warm west of Australia, it's reversed. And so
these desert areas are getting rain. Lots of rain.
Desert areas are getting lots of rain, and Australia didn't get any. So this drought that's been going on in Australia
directly related to this.
is directly related to this. It's the same event caused them, exacerbated by climate change. And what has happened is this cool, warmer than normal air in the Indian Ocean produced 3 cyclones that hit Saudi Arabia and dumped massive amounts of, hit Arabia, I should say, not just Saudi Arabia.
Well, it was in the empty quarter. They call it the empty quarter.
Yeah.
Because it's unlivable. Even the Bedouin don't live there.
Yeah. And what happened was that produced this bloom of desert plants that have been just, seeds wait around until water comes, and then they really quick go through a life cycle. Well, that produces a situation where the locust eggs, which have been waiting exactly the same way,
probably 20 years,
they're up and running, and they see all this vegetation, and the first thing they do is eat it. And the locusts, because there's so many of them, go into a part of their existence in which they're very
again.
They become very aggressive and very social with one another, where normally they wouldn't be like that. And they got hit 3 times with locust plagues in 2 years. And these plagues moved into northeast Africa and
across the Arabian Peninsula to Iraq and Iran.
Exactly. And so the cause of this plague, which they're saying is going to lead, it could lead to millions of people dying.
Well, this is what the article says.
Yeah.
City-sized swarms are wreaking havoc as they descend on crops and pasture lands, devouring everything in a matter of hours.
Everything.
They eat everything.
Everything.
Even old shoes.
I believe
Human activity has made an ocean circulation pattern misbehave, which is what you just said.
Yeah.
Triggering a weird confluence of events that has caused the infestations. The scale of the locust outbreak is like nothing in recent memory.
I look at this, and when I was a kid, the place that I lived in Illinois got hit by a locust plague. And that looked like clear skies compared to this. I mean, they made a racket. You'd hear them not chirping, but you'd hear this, what sounded like a constant whistle of these things all day. They were driving everybody crazy, and they were nothing like this. That was 17-year locust.
Wow. Oh, that's a different animal.
I know it's a different animal, but the plague that we had.
Locusts are like grasshoppers.
Yes, they are. Well, 17-year locusts are also kind of like grasshoppers. These are actually called, the ones that we're seeing in that picture are actually called short-horned grasshoppers.
Okay, I can believe that. Yeah. They're grasshoppers.
They're grasshoppers. Okay, we're up to Sunday, February 16th, and we have a boring story.
Yeah, it is. That happens to be a boring tunnel.
And this is from Clean Tech.
And it's interesting if you look at the. It's basically a very short, very fast subway.
Yeah.
Okay, running from a couple of places in Las Vegas that are only about a mile or 2 apart.
Yeah.
So, first tunnel for the Las Vegas Loop project has been completed, and you're looking at it there.
The Boring Company was.
That's the name of them.
That's the name of the company, and this is related to Tesla. It's a company that was started by Elon Musk.
Yeah, Tesla's involved. Yeah.
And Elon Musk has a funny sense of humor. I think he named this thing the Boring Company. Has completed the first of 2 tunnels it is building for the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. The tunnel's electric trains will take about a minute to cover a route that it would take a car on the surface about 15 times that. And
have you ever seen these boring machines?
No, I haven't.
They are huge, round things that go through the earth.
Yes.
Cutting a 20-foot hole.
Yes.
And it takes a crew of about 20 people to run one.
Yes.
I got a picture of one of them with the crew standing in front of this machine.
Yeah.
And the machine dwarfs the people.
Yeah, but what they're doing is boring a hole through the ground.
That's exactly what they're doing.
So they called it the Boring Company because it's boring.
Well, quick takeaway here. Well, you're gonna read about it, aren't you?
No, I've
Have you read it?
Yep, I've read it.
Yeah, you read that one. Well, this particular part of it is 0.8 of a mile long.
Yep.
It's the first of a part of it. It's going to connect buildings in the convention center.
Yes.
Okay? The system will have 3 stations, one at each end and one along the way. And this is this interesting part, carrying up to 4,400 people per hour at speeds of up to 150 miles an hour underground.
Crazy.
This thing's going to zoom.
Yes, it is.
The vehicles operating inside the tunnels will be built on a Tesla chassis.
Well, of course.
And be capable of carrying up to 16 passengers each. So they're like mini buses,
these are
but there's a bunch of them
vehicles.
chained together.
Yeah, these are small
So they're subway
vehicles.
trains.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah, we got an interesting one here.
This is from Daily Examiner, and I found this one, this particular article is really, really interesting to me.
How solar works on cloudy days may surprise you.
Renewables are the dole bludgers of the energy system. This is from an Australian anti-renewable politician who said that wind and solar are the dole bludgers.
Well, a
which
dole
means,
bludger is a welfare cheat.
yeah, it's a welfare cheat, basically. They're getting something and they're not giving anything, is what
Well,
he's
they'd
saying.
rather rely on the dole than
Yes,
go to work.
absolutely. They can only work, they only turn up to work when they want to, said Australia's ex-Federal Resources Minister Matt Canavan recently. I decided, and this is the author obviously, to crunch the numbers about solar production on rainy days, and the result was a pleasant surprise.
Well, I had to look up what a bludger was. And according to the article, it says, in my books, a bludger does nothing at all.
Yes.
Okay. My system on a rainy day, he's talking about his own solar system,
Yeah.
produces 56% of what it does on a sunny day.
Yeah.
So it's not bludging.
No, it's not.
On economic grounds alone, there is no reason whatever to keep pushing and subsidizing coal power plants.
Which are
Now,
the
he's
real
talking about
bludgers.
Australia.
They're the real dole bludgers.
They are, because they got a lot of coal. They don't know what to do with it. The government wants to sell it. Nobody wants to buy it. Well, they are selling it to places like Indonesia.
Yes, they are. And
But they're not going to be selling it
I
for
want to point
long.
out, I'm not calling coal miners dole bludgers. I'm
Oh,
calling coal
not at all.
companies. I always thought coal mining had to be the worst job you could possibly have when I was a kid. Just hard work.
It's hard work underground, and I've been in a coal mine.
Yeah.
You know.
I
It's
was
kind
in
of funny. When I came to the coal mine, I went down underground. They gave me 2 hammers.
Yes,
And what did they give me 2 hammers for? I found out to walk with.
to walk with.
It was only 4 feet high in there. So you bent all over and you used the hammers
gosh.
as crutches
Well,
to walk on 4s.
I went in a coal mine when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's deep, about, I'm going to guess 50 feet, underneath the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago.
Oh, a demo mine.
They had a
real mine though, wasn't it?
It wasn't a real mine.
It was a demo
It was a
mine.
demo mine that they had put together. They did a pretty good job, I think, but they had the coal equipment down there, and little kids could go down and go into chambers that were a little bit bigger than 4 feet.
Well, I can't imagine working all day in a 4-foot overhead.
No.
And not all coal mines are 4 feet.
Yeah.
Some of them you can walk around in.
Some of them were open pit mines.
Well, that's something else again. Yes.
Okay.
Interesting one coming up here. Sea levels in the U.S. And we got a picture here, don't we?
We do.
I'm gonna, while I'm talking about it, I'll try and get
And
the
I have
picture.
no idea where that picture was taken. It was taken on one of those days when the sun turns green, though.
No, I don't know where. It doesn't say where the picture came
No,
from.
it doesn't.
We know who took it, but we don't know
That's right.
where
Yeah.
it was. Well, what it says is sea levels around the U.S. aren't just rising. They're accelerating year on year. Sell your shorefront property, guys.
There was an article in the news today, and I don't know if we're going to have it next week or not. I think we will, but it's about flooding at the tidal basin in Washington, D.C. And this
That's
is
scary.
sunny day flooding, and guess what?
Sunny day flooding.
It is not just sunny day flooding. It is happening twice every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, where's the basin in relation to the city?
It's in the city. It's the Jefferson Monument.
Yeah, okay.
I think
So
overlooks it.
this is the Potomac.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And
The Potomac.
The problem is the land has been subsiding and the ocean level rising, and the combination of the two of them means that you get high tide flooding twice a day.
Wow.
And they're going to have
and
to.
this is inland.
Yeah, and they're having to.
I mean, the river's backing up.
Yeah, and they're having to figure out what to do about that because there are times when the paths
Put the picture up
through the tidal basin are just closed. Okay, this is from Science Alert.
Sea levels around the U.S. aren't just, I said this,
You did
didn't I?
indeed.
aren't just rising, they're accelerating.
The worst case scenario for sea level rise in the United States is more than just a dim possibility. It's getting more likely. An annual report card for U.S. coastline shows that sea levels are speeding up in most places measured. Sea level rise is speeding up in most places measured. The acceleration is fueled by climate change.
Sell that shorefront property, folks.
Well, the acceleration depends from place to place because in a lot of places the shore
Shore is receding.
in a lot of places the land is going down.
That's happening in Louisiana.
Yeah, and that combination is really bad. But in some places like Greenland,
yeah,
the relative the sea level relative to land is actually going down because the ice
Greenland
is melting and Greenland is going up rather fast. Okay.
Well, according to this article, NOAA, who you all know, thinks sea level rise is slowly accelerating around the world, and it's been doing so since around 2013 or 2014.
Yeah.
Even if our emissions stayed low, global sea levels would very likely rise at least a foot within a century.
I would.
If emissions grow, the waters could rise as much as 8 feet by 2100.
Which kind of means that Mar-a-Lago will have water sloshing through its front door.
I would imagine it's going to happen before very long.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Monday, February 17th, and we have an item from Clean Technica.
This is an interesting one.
Yeah.
Political commentator bombs on 21st century energy.
You know, this really says something about how I collect news because I saw the material about Fareed Zakaria coming up, and I said, wait a minute, I'm not going to relay that until I know what's going on.
You know what he says.
Not just what he says, but I want to see more on this. A video segment and column titled Bernie Sanders' Magical Thinking on Climate. In that segment, Fareed Zakaria of CNN communicates several falsehoods and misleading claims. His talking points definitely stem from energy industry and propaganda sources, not from good science.
Well, I got 4 takeaways from Fareed. Okay. He claims nuclear is a better option than renewables. Okay. That is false. I mean, they're closing nuclear plants early because they cost so much to operate.
They're completely paid down. That's when their power is cheapest. And they still can't compete.
Well, the fact is nuclear is actually several times more expensive than renewables.
Yes.
Okay. Another claim is that 5% of energy consumption from the U.S. comes from renewables, whereas the fact is it's 18% right now, and it's going up.
Well, there's 2 things mixed up there. One is energy and the other is electricity.
Yes.
The 5% of energy happens to be wrong, but it's not as wrong as the 5% of electricity that seems to be implied. Well, yeah,
that's a very good point. And finally, Fareed cites energy market data trends from 2005 to 2016. And it ain't those days anymore.
It's useless. This is one of the things that you have to be careful about. Whenever anybody's talking about citing something from the DOE or the market or whatever, you have to make sure that the data is as fresh as possible.
Well, this guy's trying to make his points, and I think his points are kind of loose.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, but this I don't know this guy, but this is apparently what he does. Yeah.
He's well thought of. But you know, early on when I started doing my blog, I started to realize that there were certain organizations that are absolutely adamantly anti-renewable, that are absolutely adamantly, you know, and you just go down this list. And when I started,
and they got money.
And they quote sources sometimes.
Yeah.
But they will do things like say, solar power is too expensive according to the U.S. DOE, and then they'll give a price. It costs $8 cents per kilowatt hour.
That's 2004 data.
Right, and what I had to do, I mean, they would give a very precise number, but not tell where in all the DOE sites this came from. And I started doing the research to find out where it came from, and I found out that they were consistently 3 or 4 years behind the time in a market that is changing by 14, 18, 20% per year. And at that level of change, you cannot source anything. If data is a year old, it's obsolete.
It's obsolete already.
Yeah,
It's
and they're going back 4 years. So why? I think to prove a point that happens to be not correct.
Well, we got an interesting picture coming up.
We
here,
do.
and I'll bring it up if I can.
That picture is a picture of a desalinization plant.
It is that, and I lived in Saudi Arabia where all the water we drank was desalinated water. In Saudi Arabia, you drill a water well and you get oil.
Yes.
I mean, it's literally that true.
I read that King Saud, when the British said, "Can I look for oil here?"
Yeah.
What he was hoping was that they would come up with water.
That wouldn't at all surprise me. Wouldn't at all surprise me. Well, desalination is important in a lot of parts of the world.
Yep.
And it takes power. So what they have decided to do, which makes a lot of sense, instead of using power from the grid, they're using power from the sun.
Yep.
Which incidentally, they're also shielding their reservoir.
Yes.
So it's not evaporating.
Yes.
Makes a sense.
Got a title?
Yeah, solar desalination plant brings clean water to desperate people.
This is in Clean Technica. Nonprofit Give Power was a spin-off from Solar City in 2016. By the way, Solar City is now part of Tesla.
Okay.
Okay? Its mission is to bring solar power to areas of the world without access to electricity. But seeing a great need for water, it developed a desalinization plant that could fit in a shipping container.
Well, last week we called that a sea can.
A sea can, that's right. And this picture, I think, probably shows a couple of shipping containers worth of these things. I might
Well,
be
there's
wrong.
something in the back that you can't really tell what it is.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going on there, and I would think that would be 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 shipping containers worth of stuff, because those tanks, those are water tanks, I believe.
Yeah, they are.
And they
That's
are,
not going to fit in a shipping container.
no, that whole thing is not going to, unless those tanks are collapsible. Okay.
Solar, I read this one, didn't I? Solar
Yeah.
desalination, yeah.
We could go on if you want.
Well, I got a couple of quick takeaways.
Okay.
While installing a solar power system, the staff noticed an even more pressing need than electricity. Okay, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So after 5 years of drought, these people had no clean water to drink or bathe in.
Yeah.
So the Give Power team invented a solar powered desal plant.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
I could have invented one.
You know, there are places in the world where people have cattle,
yeah,
and where water is so precious
the cattle get it.
that the people bathe in urine from the cattle.
I haven't heard that one, but okay.
Yeah. I've seen pictures of mothers washing their children with urine from cattle. Now,
Well,
they
what-
have to rinse with water, but
With this desalination plant, what they claim about it, can operate 24 hours a day.
yes.
So it's
Well, yeah, I mean,
the plant is operating 24 hours a day, so it must have some battery backup.
yeah.
Okay, it can transform up to 18,000 gallons. This is just one shipping container of brackish or salt water into clean, healthy drinking water
That's per day.
per day.
Yeah. That's a lot of
It
water.
makes a lot of sense
It does
in
indeed.
arid areas.
And by the way, I want to tell a little story, a very short story here. The house that I
I'm
lived
timing
in,
you.
the house that I lived in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
was originally dependent on shallow springs,
Okay.
and the springs would start getting a little bit worn out by the end of the summer.
Okay.
And so the story that I don't remember this, but I remember people talking about it. My grandmother, on one occasion, bathed in the water that she had used to boil the corn in.
Wow.
That's how precious water was.
Water was precious.
And we
wasn't
take
it?
this
Yeah.
for granted.
Yeah.
We really do. But in much of the world, you know, my brother, by the way, invented a filter that is useful in places like Bangladesh, where a third of the people in Bangladesh live in areas where the groundwater, the wells that they have,
It's brackish.
no, they're tainted with arsenic.
Arsenic. Oh,
A
wow.
lot of people are dying because of arsenic in the water.
Yeah, yeah. And this filter that he invented takes arsenic out of
No,
the water?
it doesn't. It takes It's better than that. The government.
I know it's a good filter.
The government of Bangladesh took water directly out of the Ganges River and put it into Reed's filters, and what came out had a bacteria content of 0.
No kidding.
Yes.
So this is quite a filter even then.
This is quite a filter, and he's got patents on it, but the patents are no good because you can make those filters so easily, so cheaply. Any village potter.
So you don't need
can
the
do
patent. Don't need to use the patent.
You can cheat on the patent, and Reed can't. What's he going to do? Run down 20,000 village potters to get $1.50 from each? So he's done something that's good there. But what it is it's ceramic, and it's porous, so the water will leak through. But it's washed with silver compound that has been set up, and silver is a super deadly poison to microbial life forms.
Interesting.
And I was telling this a couple of weeks ago, and there was something green, and I said it reminds me of my brother. He's got argyria, which means that he's turned slightly blue.
I knew a woman like that once.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why she was, but she was blue.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have got a couple of minutes to finish up.
Wind solar generating capacity is rising.
The share of U.S. grid electricity generated by natural gas will be relatively steady from 2019 to 2021 at 37% in 2019, 38% in 2020, and then falling back to 37% in 2021. That's the first time I've seen the EIA say that. This is according to the Energy Information Administration. Meanwhile, the share generated by renewables will rise from 17% to 21%. This is from
So this is grid electricity we're talking about.
Yes, this is from Callanish Energy.
The increase in renewables share is a result of expected additions to wind and solar generating capacity, which we've been talking about. I mean, it's economics.
Yep.
Coal will fall from 24% in 2019 to 21% in 2021.
You believe that?
And it's going to keep going.
I don't think it's even going to be close to 21% in
Nuclear
2021.
will be slightly lower than 20% by 2021. Well, nuclear is too expensive to keep running.
Tom, we've got about 7 minutes to
6 minutes and 50 seconds.
to do 6 items. So we're going to have to go through these really fast.
Well, we'll get a nice picture of Jeff Bezos here.
Yeah, this is from CNN.
There he is. Jeff Bezos commits $10 billion to fight climate change. Well, he can afford it.
Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos announced a new fund called the Bezos Earth Fund to back scientists, activists, and organizations working to mitigate the impact of climate change. Bezos will commit $10 billion, quote, to start, end quote, he said. The initiative will begin giving out grants this summer.
Well, it compares with $36 billion committed by Warren Buffett in 2006.
Yeah.
And $16 billion pledge by Helen Walton of Walmart.
Yeah.
Okay. Bezos calls, and he's right here, climate change the biggest threat to our planet.
Yes. Let's go on. Clean Technica.
USA had the largest CO2 reduction in the world in 2019. Well, that's interesting.
This is a good piece of good news to share that might have slipped under your nose. The USA had the largest CO2 reduction in the world in 2019 on a per-country basis. The entire EU, in total, did slightly better. The news comes from data gathered by the International Energy Agency.
Well, if you look at this, it's kind of grim because the EU and the US and Japan are the only 3 countries in the world that went down.
My bet is that there's other countries
some of the ones
that went down.
in Europe because they're part of the EU.
Yeah, I would bet that there are other countries that just didn't make it into their
Maybe they didn't make it.
graphs.
Well, the remainder of the world, this is from the article, is actually increasing its CO2.
Yeah. Public News Service has
we
an
got
item from
another
Louisville,
picture here of
Kentucky.
Louisville.
And this is interesting because it's Kentucky this is coming from.
Well, I've been to Louisville, and it didn't look like that when I was there. Louisville is the 160th city to pass 100% renewable energy resolution.
In Kentucky, the Louisville Metro Council voted to commit 100% renewable energy use for the city's operations within the next 2 decades. That seems kind of slow to me. The city will work to shift public transit and other operations to run on clean energy such as electricity from solar power, electricity and solar power.
Well, I flew into Louisville one time when I was working in a mining cable industry. And we drove up from there to Pikeville where the mines are.
Yeah.
And we got up there at night, got up there in the morning, went to a nice motel up on a mountain.
Yeah.
Got up in the morning, and as we were walking out in the parking lot, I noticed that all the mountains that were visible were plateaus.
Yes.
And I remarked on that. And my friend says they're not plateaus. Mountaintop mining, they took the tops off the mountains.
They took the tops off the mountains. Okay, we are up to Wednesday, February 19th, and we have an item here
Last day
from
here, we got a nice picture here.
Mid-Hudson News and a nice photograph.
That is
Where
Vassar
is that?
College.
That's Vassar College. That's not some palace someplace.
No, it looks kind of pretty.
Yeah, okay.
Old building, but it's a pretty campus.
What do you got for a title, Tom?
Vassar College to buy renewable energy.
In Poughkeepsie, New York, or Poughkeepsie as local people say, Vassar College has announced an agreement with its energy provider to purchase electricity generated solely by renewable sources. The new contract with the energy supplier, EDF Energy, is effective on beginning July 2021. Vassar's goal is to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030.
Well, they've been moving to 100% renewables for a long time.
Yes,
so
they
they're on track.
Okay, an item from vtdigger.org.
Yeah. Senators, this is about Vermont, by the way.
Yes.
Vermont senators. Senators consider requiring utilities to buy more local renewables. It's very controversial right now.
It is. A proposal discussed by the Vermont Senate Finance Committee, S-267, would require utilities to buy 100% renewable electricity by 2030. And 20% of that would have to come from smaller in-state sources, double the amount currently required by law.
This comes from VT Digger, and if you're interested in this is a very informative article.
Yes.
It's long, it goes into detail.
A lot of material from VT Digger.
And it's all about Vermont.
Yes.
So three of the state's utilities, which is the Burlington Electric Department, the Swanton Electric Department, and the Washington Electric Co-op, are already 100% renewable.
Yes.
Okay? The state's largest utility, Green Mountain Power, has committed to doing so by 2030.
Right.
Okay? Vermont has the highest clean energy employment rate in the nation.
Yes, but what's controversial about this is they want 20% of that to be local, where it had been 10%. So.
And Green Mountain Power is buying a lot of it from Hydro-Quebec, which they own, or which owns them.
Yeah. Okay, we have one last item from Clean Technica and a boring photograph from the owners of the boring company.
Well, that's a picture of a Tesla battery being made, and apparently all those little round things are cathodes.
Here, I thought those were beer cans. What do you got for a title?
Tesla Shanghai Model 3. They make this Tesla Model 3 in Shanghai.
They do.
May go cobalt-free using CATL, that's a company, C-A-T-L, LFP cells. And you're going to explain what LFP
An LFP cell is lithium iron phosphate, and it is very often called in energy circles LiFePO4, LiFePO4 is the chemical symbol. But these people are calling it LFP.
Well, F stands for ferrous, so it's...
Yes, that's right. Tesla is in talks with battery producer CATL to supply lithium ion phosphate cells for the Shanghai-made Tesla Model 3, Reuters reported. LFP cells are relatively cheap, simple to package, and require no scarce minerals such as cobalt and nickel.
Exactly.
And this is something
there's mineral supply constraints.
Yeah.
You can't get cobalt. Nickel's fairly abundant still.
Yeah.
But it's you got to go some to get it. But cobalt's in trouble.
Well, cobalt, we have the problems with child miners in Nigeria and stuff
That is
like
a problem, yeah.
Yep. Okay, we are pretty much up to the end of the show. And so I have a last message for you, which is have an astonishingly easy week. Why don't you put us up and we can wave goodbye?
I will do that.
There you go.
Goodbye, folks.
Have a good week. Come back next time.